world is this world, so it's a very important introduction. We take this world very seriously. Then we had the first chapter where we said, unless you understand what is Olam Haba, you don't have the foundation to start working on your character. The idea of this book is how to build your character. In other words, how not just to be a person who does a good act, but to be a person who is a good person. It's very different. It's like there's a difference between image and personality. Image is superficial, is external. I could go to people they're called building image, and they'll build whatever image I'd like to build, but it doesn't mean it's not me. It's external, it's superficial. Personality is who you are in your depth of who you are, and it's who you live. You live what you practice, what you preach, you live what you're learning. So the last few classes we discussed the idea of the soul, Olam Haba, and now we're moving to the first step of Tikkun Midot. The Ramchal chose a few, the most important midot, that if you work on these midot, you basically have everything. Like, for example, a person saves the king's daughter's life. The king says, what do you want? I can give you money. I can give you, you can be in control of my army. You could, all kinds of different offers. And then he says, or you can marry my daughter. So he says, I'm going to marry your daughter because if I marry your daughter, I got everything. So the same thing, these key characters that we're working on, Zeirut, Zrizut, we'll explain in a minute, are, you're catching the source. This is the source of many, many, many other characters. If you have these two qualities of Zeirut and Zrizut, and we'll explain what it is. Before we explain, I want to again explain that the Ramchal is the master of organized, systematic program. Like A leads to B. He gives you the foundations. Now you know this. You're ready to move on for the next thing. Everything is he's the master of education, and therefore, the layout of the book is that every character that you want to acquire. For example, right now we're working on Zeirut, and we'll explain what that is in a minute. But he breaks it down to 4 parts, and this is the layout of the whole book and of every chapter. If you want to understand Zeirut, which is paying attention, we'll explain what it is in a minute, we're going to go in depth. You first need to understand what is Zeirut in Klal, the overview. One of the big problems we do in life is we go into subjects. We go into learning subjects without understanding the overview. First, understand the big picture. When you're learning Gemara, don't jump into Abaya said to Rava, ba ba ba. Whoa. Understand first the layout, the concepts, the general idea. That's called to see you don't want to get lost. They say from the trees you don't see the forest. First, see the forest. See the big picture. Understand what we're dealing with. Who's against, in Hebrew you say, me neged me. Who's against who? What are these subjects? And that's the overview. Once you understood that, it's not enough to just understand the overview. You need prat. You need the detailed. What do I have to do now in order to acquire it? I understand the overview. I get it. I get the big picture. Now you have to go into the details. What do I have to do? Now, once you understand the details, what's missing? I understand the overview. I know what to do. What else do I need? You need motivation. It's not enough to understand what you have to do. Many people you know exactly what to do. They could say it by heart. Da, 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 da. I need to do da, 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 da. You know it. You say it. So why don't you do it?
What was step 3 again?
Called kniya. To buy it.
No, it says 4. Like on the. 1, 2.
Oh, okay.
I thought you missed.
Wow. How did I get to 4 and 5? That is not Zeirut. It's an example of, I wanted to see if David is Zahir, and he's definitely Zahir.
You said there's 4 things we need to know as you were writing number 3, so you wrote 4.
Right, it's like, thanks for helping me figure out where the slip went wrong. So, Kniya is motivation. It's not enough to know what to do. You need to motivate yourself to do it. And the Ramchal, as we said, in his great genius, he has three different, he maps out the world to three different motivation styles or directions to motivate. That's when we get to the chapters 5. The last part, so wait, I understand the overview, I know what to do, I have motivation, I'm doing it. So what's left? Maintenance and upkeep. Just because you got it doesn't mean you're not going to lose it. Just because you understand it, you're doing it, you're motivated, great. If you don't take the steps of upkeep and maintenance, you have a car, you don't go and do the change the oils, you don't do the brakes, your car will be destroyed. Everything in life, if you don't constantly keep on, upkeep and maintenance, it will be gone. And by the way, this is such a huge gift. This is such a huge gift just for everything in life, to understand this layout for whatever it is you want to acquire in your life, whether it's your marriage, and these are the steps. You understand it, there's upkeep, there's maintenance. Everything in life, you need upkeep and maintenance or else it's gone. But the fact that you understand that it exists, it means that you don't have to think, okay, I'm going into marriage and it's just going to be bad because that's just what happens. Or it's just, it's not in my control. It's in your control. There's steps that you take. There's action to take. And this is the layout of the book. And now we'll begin the overview. Chapter 2 starts with Hine Inyan HaZeirut. What is Zeirut? Sheyeh ha'adam nizhar b'ma'asav u'b'inyanav. To be careful, to be aware, b'ma'asav, your actions, u'b'inyanav, your personality, your social connections, your social interactions. U'b'inyanav, klomar, what does it mean? Mitbonen u'mefakeach. You have to be overlooking, you have to be overseeing, you have to be reviewing yourself. Watch your movie. You are the star of the show. It's very exciting. Watch yourself. Umefakeh adrachav, masav udrachav. Your actions. Drachav is again your personality, your behaviors, things that are not always the most obvious. Things that are not just actions. Also, what are you thinking? What are your intentions? Right? What are your feelings? What are your habits? Hatovim hem imlo. Are they good? Are they bad? Levilti azov nafsho. The sakanat avadon. To not let yourself just go to a very bad place.
Rabbi, you said a question. Am I on the same book? I don't know where we are. To be
Yeah, here.
on the first.
Yeah, right here. Right, the first part. Hine inyan hazeirut.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we read, yeah? Okay, v'lo yilech b'malach hergelo, and this is the key word. V'lo yilech b'malach hergelo ke'iver ba'afela. And do not go with your habit like a blind person in the when there's mist, when there's fog. Why do we have to say that? A blind person in the fog? Because a blind person at night, he wants people to see him. So what does he do? He walks with a candle. So he's doing something to take action to watch himself. But what happens if there's a fog, heavy fog? You can't see 1 second away from you. Your lights are on in your car, you don't see it. You're holding a candle, you can't see it. So many people think, I am being careful. But we're talking about a heavy fog. The challenge we're dealing with is big. We'll explain why and how. And it's not enough to do a minimal amount of effort. But what is the key word here? Hergelo, habit. What is zeirut? What is the opposite? Zeirut means paying attention, being careful, being cautious, being aware. planning before you do, thinking before you do, igniting your what we call bechira chofshit, freedom of choice. I have a choice, and I'm not going to do anything without choosing to do it. We have in us a turn into machines. There's many movies about this because people are very scared about it, and they're right. And the machines will take over the world. Who is the machine? Us. We can act out of habit and not out of choice. In other words, we can become machines. Our actions can be mechanical actions. I'm putting on my tefillin. I'm not there. I'm not thinking this is the will of God. This is right now the opportunity for me to connect with God. Why am I doing this? What is this all about? I'm just doing it because I did it yesterday, so I'm doing it today. That is a danger, and that we have to be aware of. So the opposite of zeirut is habit. In Hebrew, how do you say habit? Hergel. Okay, what word do you see here when you see hergel? What's the word that you see when I say hergel? David? Hergel comes from the word of regel. Okay? Where is the furthest place away from your brain?
Obviously, it's the foot.
The foot. So when you are when a person is acting without thought, it means that your foot is taking you. You're just going after your feet. And that, by the way, so we said there's a big battle between two brothers, Yaakov and Esav. Esav in Hebrew means, Rashi says, asui. Why is his name Esav? Made, whole, complete, perfect. He was born with coloring, with hair, and they said, wow, he's like a full human being. Yes, that's his philosophy. You're perfect the way you are, you don't need to change. Not only you don't need to change, if you try and change, you're going against God. Because God created you the way He created you, and He doesn't want you to change. Yaakov, on the other hand, gets a new name. What is Yaakov? Why is his name Yaakov?
Ekev.
What is Ekev?
It's the heel.
It's the heel. On the foot, the lowest, you have a foot, and then you have a heel, is even the lowest of the lowest. Yaakov comes from a different philosophy. No, you're not perfect the way you are. You have a great potential. You have to bring out your potential. You start at a very low place. A child, it's a sweet, beautiful, pure child. But the child has one interest as when it's born. Me, me, me. There's nothing wrong with that. Take care of me. There's nobody else but me. Baby cries, wants food, wants to be taken care of, can't do anything. It's only me. And as you grow, you start to be able, if you're a healthy, growing person, you start to be able to see that there's actually another person besides me. Wow. That's a revelation. A lot of people, unfortunately, are grown-ups. They could be 100 years old and they're still, character-wise, emotional-wise, they're babies. There's only me. But the goal, the purpose of life is Yaakov. And what is Yaakov? He struggles. Ki sarita im Elokim va'adam v'tochal. He fought. When did he get his new name? When he was fought the angel. Yeah. We're struggling with spiritual, with difficult challenges, and Yaakov becomes Yisrael. What is the letters Yisrael? Li Rosh. I have a head. I have ability to think. The Rambam writes in the first. We write. I know if you. And then when we open the Shulchan Aruch, the first words we read is Shiviti Hashem Agdi Tamid. That you should always think that you're standing before Hashem. Ki en yeshivato shel adam. You will sit very different. You will talk very different if you understand that you're standing before a king. Where did that come from? This statement of the Shulchan Aruch. Where did he bring this statement from? That you should think that God is before you, and you should, because the person sitting in front of a king will talk differently, act differently, dress differently, think differently. if there's a king in front of you. Where did that come from? It came from the Moreh Nevuchim.
Okay.
The Moreh Nevuchim says, a person, exactly those words, you're standing in front of a king at the end of Moreh Nevuchim. I didn't study it, but this is my rabbi told me. What does it mean? Who is this king? This king is your sechel. You have in you a sechel, an intellect, an ability to think in a very high level. That's the king of your existence. And that king communicates with the creator of the world. The king is the sechel. And that's what we said. The furthest place away from your head is your feet, your habits. And you have to become li rosh. I have a head. I think, I plan, I understand, I learn, and then I act. So the Ramchal says, "V'hineh ze davar she'asechel yichaver v'day." And this is something that obviously the sechel, the ability, the intellect, what gives us, our advantage from animals is we have a sechel, right? Animals they don't have they have a very small intellect. They could do something. They can't talk. They can't communicate. They can't think in the way that human beings do. That's the next level up from animal is human beings. And this is something that obviously our sechel, our intellect would obligate us. So obviously you want to save yourself. And he says, if you don't save yourself, then you are lower than the animals. So Ramchal tells us, if you do not look after your personality, your human existence, your actions, you are less than an animal. Why? Why? The answer is that the animals have a very developed self-preservation mechanism that they could be sleeping, but they're always with one ear open. They're always ready to jump if there's a danger on a very, very, very high level. They could be sleeping. You could see the cat sleeping. It feels like a danger. Boom, it jumps to like 10 meters up in the air. And they're always, in Hebrew you say erani, awakened to the protection of their body. Now the Ramchal is going to go on and tell us that people follow their habits. I'm just jumping a little bit. That he says, "Kasus kula b'murutzatam kasus shatef b'milchama." But we see, and this doesn't make any sense. If animals are so aware and cautious for their bodies, they're always aware. So why does a horse run into battle and run right towards the spear? It's the opposite of the nature of the animal, right? Why would an animal, right? If an animal feels any danger, it runs the other way. It's always like so aware. You see a cat crossing a street, left, right, looking, very, very aware. But why does the horse run into battle?
Because there's like a man controlling him.
Because the human beings learned techniques how to dismantle the sensor for the protection of the body of the animal. They have a way. They had all kinds of ways with drugs, with like beating it, with all kinds of techniques, training the horse that it doesn't have that mechanism. So the same way the animal can lose its protection for its body, we are all created with our mechanism is not, our sensor doesn't work. That's the fact. Our sensor that we should feel, like we spoke in the last chapter, we should have such a powerful sensor that if something is bad for my personality, if something is against the will of God, it should be like I won't stick my hand in the fire. Same way I will not stick my hand in fire, I will not put myself in a spiritual danger. Why do we not have it? We could say the sin of Adam and Eve. The reality is we don't have it. The whole idea of this book is to teach us how to have it. First, understand there is we have a problem. We need to go to the mechanic, which is the Ramchal, mechanic of the soul, and we need to install a new sensor for for zehirut, for me to be protective. I will not watch a movie that's bad for my soul. I will not listen to Lashon Hara. I will not, the whole list of things. I won't do things that will hurt my personality, that are against the will of God, la briyut. And he says, this is the way we are. We are like that horse that's running right to the face of danger. It's running towards a spear. It's the opposite of what it really wants. But it does it. Why? Because we are all like this horse that is running in battle. Because we have our nature is messed up. We start at Yaakov. We're in a low place. It's okay. As long as you want to become Yisrael. As long as you want to move up. Like the Maral says, Me'akoach el ha'poal. Bekoach, in potential, we're very high. Bafal, in reality, we're very low. So now we have to just move ourselves up to bring out that potential. That's what we're talking about. And who is the one that opens our eyes? Yirmiyahu. The prophets, that was their job. They're not sunk into that bad place. They're not, they have the healthy sensor. They are aware, and they say to us, they scream for us, wake up. You're running towards that spear at 100 miles an hour. Stop. Take control. Right? Take control. But why? So what do we have to do? We said we're running after our habits. It's like we put our life on cruise control. We pressed cruise and we're going. What's the problem? Is that life is not a direct path. If you go straight, you're going to crash into a wall. There's turns. There's different speeds. There's different
There's always been obstacles.
There's obstacles. You can't just think that, like it says about a drunk person. No, Shlomo Meir said, "Noten einav bekoso, dome alav haolam kemishor." A drunk person, the same thing of zeirut. What's one of the things that's the opposite of zeirut is habit. What's another thing that's the opposite of zeirut? Being drunk. They say that I think 7% of the people who are smoking actually stop smoking. They go to all kinds of courses, they fight it, and 90% of those 7% that stop smoking start smoking again when they're drunk. So there's no guard, there's no freedom of choice when you're drunk and you put down your armor.
I think I was thinking that Hashem also give us like another sense, which is balance. When we're young, we learn how to balance, and then when we are drunk, we don't have this balance at all. Like we are
Exactly. Once a year on Purim, you can do it, and you won't be harmed. The rabbis teach us. Hashem will protect you once a year, and secrets will come out. It's okay. Even then, there's like different rabbis say you should or you shouldn't, but once a year, it's okay. So what happens? So what do we do? Hainu. So he says, Mibli sheyanichu zman. This is the key word. Mibli sheyanichu zman leatzmam ledaktek b'maasehem v'drachim v'nimtza shem noflim bara b'yotah. So in other words, you need the number one foundation of zehirut is time. You need time. You need time, right? Giving time. Time allows you to create something very complex. But when you complain and say, I don't have time, what do you mean? I have to learn, I have a family, I have things I have to do, you have a list of things you have to do, everything's wonderful. It basically means you've decided life is not a challenge. Life is not a challenge. I don't have time. Life is a very big challenge. And you need to set time to deal with your human aspects of your human reality. The dimensions of your human soul, your personality. And that's the work of this world. And there's ways to deal with this challenge, to deal with the important things. But what happens? Why don't we deal with the important things? The answer is because we're in a war of survival. Or we're telling ourselves, what are you talking about? When survival becomes the focal of your attention, when it's all about survival, you're willing to give up everything for it. Everything for it. Because survival is existing. So when it comes to, right, it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, and if I don't work day and night, I will die. That's what people think. Then you don't have any room for dealing with your values, your idealism. And that, it's true, you have to put out effort for the world, the reality of existence. But it becomes very dangerous when everything is an emergency. It becomes an obsession. There's no excuse for that. And we're talking only 100 years ago or 200 years ago, since the Industrial Revolution, 99% of people worked 17 hours a day just to survive, just to have bread to eat. And only the aristocrats, they had free time. Now, 99.9% of people have plenty and plenty of time. But what happened? Social media, I don't know how you say it in English, tarbut hapnai, the spare time culture, the entertainment, swallowed up all the free time. So nobody has time. Nobody has time. Everybody has time, but nobody has time.
Can I say something?
Please.
This is the habit that I had before. Like I used to have like a Facebook, and every time after work, I'm just sitting and then scrolling. Like, oh, I just have more time, so maybe 1 hour, and then I didn't notice that time is like eating it. Like, and then what I did is just I realized that all of these are a waste of time. So what I did, I deactivated my Facebook, but I keep my Messenger on so that I can still have the contacts. And this changed everything. It's like in a new world because now I have more time in my family, in the house. I have time to read now. I
It's
have
amazing. That's exactly what David HaMelech says. Ashrei Ish, blessed is the person. Asher lo halach be'atzat rashaim. Ubederech hata'im lo amad. Ubemoshav letzim lo yashav. The first Tehillim says, blessed is the person who doesn't walk in the way of evil people and doesn't stand in the way of bad people where they're standing and doesn't sit in the place where the bad people sit. Now this is amazing. What is the David HaMelech telling us? Halach means you're walking. You happen to be looking at your phone and suddenly there's this short video. It's 2 seconds. So all you do is you watch it. It is somebody doing something that you can't believe. But it's 1 second. And here you stopped for 1 second. Then you find yourself sitting. You watch not 1, but 20. That's already 5 minutes. 3 minutes. And then you sit, you find yourself on those 1 minute videos. Hours and hours and hours. So all you do is just, you happen to stop to walk that way. You have a choice now. I'm going to walk that way. I'm going to walk this way. You walk that way. You just want to see something. It's a second. It's interesting. You have to be on the ball. We'll talk about, again, we're not going into now the details, how we do it. Right now we're just talking the overview. The overview is that we are all in, and this is what he says, this, and where do we learn this from? Where do we understand this from? And he says, this is what the Yetzirah, Ve'ulam ze tachbulot haYetzirah. This is the tricks of the Yetzirah. And we mentioned in the first chapter. He says, we know all the tricks of the Yetzirah, and we have all of the ways to combat it. what his number one technique that's been working thousands of years. He doesn't need to change it, the Yetzer Hara. And is what? Le'achbid avodato betmidut alibot ne'adam. To make you be working all the time, and the work doesn't mean just physical work. It means your brain is always being used to think, how am I going to survive? How am I going to use my mind to make money, to develop to have more success, and whatever it is. Your brain is trapped, right? And you have no moment to think. Why is this? The enemy of the Yetzer Hara is if you stop and think, because he knows ki yodea. If you would just give yourself a few minutes a day to think, where am I at? Am I in the right direction? Am I happy in my life? Am I doing positive things? Just if you would give yourself that small little island of sanity, of silence. I was walking today in the street. I couldn't believe there's so much noise pollution. There's so much noise all the time. You don't have a second of quiet. Tractors and noise and music and blasting. It's like there's so little quiet, right? Because he knows if you would just give yourself that small island of silence, of thought time, not to meditate where you don't think of anything. No, but you give yourself time to think, where am I at? What is going on with me in my life? Am I happy? Am I in the right direction? Am I doing positive things? Right away you would feel guilty. That guilt would get stronger and stronger until you would actually leave that negative thing that you don't want to be doing. And where did we learn this from? Paro. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to the Jewish people after 210 years of suffering and says, Elohei Avichem shelchani, right? God, the God of your fathers sent me, and he said, I'm taking you out. What does it say? Vayamenam. They believed. They were uplifted. They were suddenly thinking values, idealism, redemption, positivity. Wow. They got out of for a second from the rat race. Paro says, they're starting to think idealism. They're starting to think redemption. They're starting to think, right? They're starting to think. Tichbad alem avodah. Pump up the work volume. A little more action on the social media. Louder, more colorful, more nudity, more violence. Let's go. No. They can't think. What happens? Moshe Rabbeinu comes back. Velo shamu el Moshe mikotze ruach ume'avodah kasha. I can't breathe. I'm just trying to survive. What are you talking to me about? The Torah, the land of Israel. What do you? Leave me alone. I can't. I'm just trying to survive. I'm in the world, I'm in the war of survival. It's a matter of life and death. If it's life and death, if it's pikuach nefesh, then everything else is pushed aside. Survival. So there's nothing to talk about. That's it. Paro knows. Tichbad avodah. As soon as you give them time, suddenly the identity starts coming out. A group of slaves are threatening the whole kingdom, the superpower of the world. That if they would have time to just think, who am I? What's my purpose in life? What's my mission? To go to Jerusalem, to build a mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh, or lagoim, to create a role model for the whole world, to create this Shem's presence in the world. These are all incredible things, but you need time to think about this. You have to stop everything and think about it. But what are you talking about? I'm drowning. What are you telling me? I'm just trying to survive. I don't have a second to breathe. Don't talk to me about anything. This is what it is. These questions. Who are you? What are your values? What is your personality? This will lead you to build your personality, to create an identity. The conclusion is that you have a soul, that you have a tzelem Elokim, you have an image of God, right? But, as we said, this is the goal of Paro, and it worked. I can't breathe. Lo shamu al Moshe kotzo avda kasha. I can't stop for a second. Ken hu, that's what he wants to do. Bekoach hatmadat avodah bilti mufseket. The non-stop work. You have to check your emails, your Facebook, your Instagram, your this, your Facebook, your this, your WhatsApps, your SMSs, your blah blah blah. It keeps going. Where does it end? You have 10 groups, and you have to read each thing in each group. Blah, blah, blah. Well, you don't have time for anything. Why? Alken, this is what he says. Don't look at the Yetzer Hara as a little light thing, a simple thing. No. This is what he says. Ki ish milchama hu umelumad be'armimiyut. You're talking about a well-trained assassin, a warrior. You're not coming against a little guy. You're talking about somebody who's trained and a master soldier, number one in the world.
He says in the Shulchan Aruch, Yetzer Hara knows the perfect art, the word.
That's what it says. That's what it says there. Ish milchama, he's a man of war, umelumad be'armumiyut, and he has all the tricks and techniques. Right? He shows you a video of a cute video of a baby going and helping an old lady cross the street. Oh, that's so nice. What's hiding behind that little baby is, keep going, nudity, violence, all the worst things that you don't want to see. So you have to know that you're dealing with a very cunning, a very wise, a very powerful man of war. But the Yetzer Hara is not a person. So what are you talking about? The Yetzer Hara is not a person. So what are you saying here? Sounds like you're talking about a person. The Yetzer Hara is not a somebody. The Yetzer Hara is the desire, the tendency that we have for our desire. Yetzer means creation. It's for the desire for our existence, for our survival. And that's very powerful. And that takes over your whole reality. Like we said about Yaakov. It says, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem. It's something I try to remember myself a lot. It says, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem. Amar Rav Shalem. What is Shalem? Success. Yaakov Avinu, finally, he finished dealing with lots of challenges. What does it say? Amar Rav Shalem begufo, Shalem betorato, Shalem b'mamono. There are 3 pillars for you to be able to be a stable, balanced, healthy person. What are the pillars? Your body, your Torah, and your money. And you need to balance these 3. Kavate tina Torah. Did you set time for learning Torah every day? That's the first question they ask you when you go to Shemayim. Did you set time to learn Torah? Did you do business honestly? Or did you... Time is not... It's a limited resource. You have only a limited amount of time. And if you overdo it in one pillar, it comes on the expense of something else. It comes on the expense of your body. It comes on the expense of your Torah. It's not that you can just go crazy. I'll do it, no problem. No. It's coming on the expense of something else.
All right.
Where is your balance in your life? Certain time, you're in yeshiva, you have a lot of time to do Torah, it's okay. Torah can expand.
You don't need the mammon.
Exactly. But when you need the mammon, you do what you have to do. You have to work. But like we said, in the non-Jewish world, there's one goal for education. From when you're a baby. One goal. To prepare you for the battle of life. You're going to go out there to the war. Everybody is fighting over that dollar. And you have to be the best, the fastest, the smartest, the strongest, right? The war of survival. Rav Kook says in the Jewish world there's 2 goals. Lasot Adam Tov V'Yashar. Goal number 1, to make a person be good. and honest and yashar and Messilat Yesharim, to be pure, to be with idealism, to be holy, and prepare you for the war of life. But the first goal comes first. And that goal takes precedence over the other goals. And therefore, yes, we may have to put aside a little bit the secular studies, because learning Torah is what creates this person that becomes good and honest and yashar. So we said, this man of war is not a person, it's you, it's me. It's the desire for our existence, and we have to silence those war bells. Silence those war bells and tell yourself, calm down. There's no war. I have time to teach a class in Machon Meir once a week for an hour. I know the whole world is depending on you. I know that you're running the world and that you're in control of everything. And I know that, you think that you're so important. You have time to learn Torah. You have time. You just have to create an island of sanity in this how do you say, storm of madness. And that's what we're talking about. And it's as if there's an enemy inside of us that's creating war. You're not allowing me to think. That war of survival is creating a war against me. And it's like, you have nothing, that there's nothing else but self-preservation. That's it. I don't have time for anything. I don't have time to think, introspect. I don't have time to stop. Right? You don't have to stop life. We're not saying stop life. We're saying stop the takeover, the hostile takeover of your desire for survival against all of your values that are inside of you. And that's the prophet is screaming. Al titen shena lenecha. Don't fall asleep. Don't lose the, again, sleeping is another level of the opposite of zehirut. When you're sleeping, when you're drunk, when you're living your life through habits, that is what we're talking about. And that's what the rabbis told us. Shlomo HaMelech, and the rabbis taught us in Mishlei, Kol hasam orchotav ba'olam hazeh zoche vero'eh b'yeshuat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you start to review your actions and your personality, sam orchotav, shuma is when you evaluate. If you start evaluating yourself, if you start taking a step back out of yourself and watching yourself, how am I acting? What am I doing? What am I behaving? What are my actions? What are my thoughts? What are my intentions? All these things, you'll see, you'll see that God will suddenly give you a redemption, will step in and help you. And will help you that, because you have this voice that's always screaming in your head. You're losing. You're not looking out for yourself enough. Right? These thoughts, you're not, what do you make? How much are you making here in yeshiva? You're sitting in yeshiva. Go to university. 4 years, you'll have a degree. 6 years, you'll have a BA. Keep going. You'll have status. You'll have money. You'll have this. What are you doing in yeshiva? You're studying some kinds of halachas that's not going to help you. We're here. We're now. Make money. Make survival. Right? Go do something meaningful. Stop wasting your time. What are you getting from it? What's this going to help your future? Your status? Who's going to want to marry a bum? And you're right. And you have to say, no. Silence. I don't want to hear this. I just learned chapter 1. I learned about a soul. I learned about the Olam Haba. Sorry, no, I have other things. I need to be careful. And you have to evaluate your actions. Don't let life lead you. Don't be dragged by life. Don't be dragged by the reality. Right? If you try to help yourself, God will help you. You have a soul. Your soul will start to speak. Your soul will start to speak up. And this is it. But there's a little disclaimer. Very important to know. ופשוט, שאפילו אם פיקח אדם על עצמו, I want you to know something. Don't think you're all alone. Even if you are doing this where you're trying to be aware and look after yourself, you don't have the power to go up against the forces of evil, the Yetzer Hara and the challenges. You can't. Ilmalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu ozo. You need God's help. You need to pray also. Let's not put God aside. You need God's help. It says that Bar Kochba said, God, don't help me and don't help me and don't interfere. Don't help me and don't interfere. Right? No, we need your help and we need you to interfere because we can't do it alone. We need your help. It's very important to know because we're dealing against a very powerful force. And it says, Sofeh Rasha Tzaddik U'Mevekesh La'amito Hashem Le'azven Yodo. It says in Tehillim, King David said, there is actually, Yetzer Hara is like sitting there. It's like a sniper. It's waiting for your moment of weakness. I just, it's like on your phone. You say, why do I need a block? Why do I need to pay 35 shekels a month for Rimon or other blocks? Why do I have to pay? I know I don't go into Facebook. I don't go to pornography. I'm careful. The answer is the Yetzer Hara is sitting there and waiting for that moment of weakness. The one moment where things didn't go well, you're feeling down, you're knocked out, something, and then you click on it. At that moment, you don't have that block. So even 99% of the time you're okay. But that one time where you were caught off weakness, it popped up, something this, you saw, you're interested, you weren't sure what it was, you got sucked in. There you find yourself in the gutters, in the sewer. You don't want to be there. Therefore you need God's help, but you also need to help yourself. But God will not help you if you don't. If you're helping yourself and you're doing your best, I'll help you. But if you don't look after yourself, then God will not help you. Ki im en ani li. If I don't look out for myself, who's going to look out for you? If you don't have a brain in your, then God says, okay, you're not taking the minimal amount of effort. I'm not helping you. Same thing with Yosef. Yosef, a 17-year-old young guy, alone in Egypt. The most beautiful woman of Egypt, the wife of Potiphar, is trying to seduce him every day. Every day, and he's fighting like a lion. No. Every single day. She put on different clothes, she perfumed, she was trying every way. And he was fighting it. Finally, what happens? Vayihi hayom, vayavo abayta lasot melachto. Comes a day, it was a great day of idol worshipping, nobody is home. Only Potiphar's wife, she stayed home to seduce Yosef, and Yosef was at a point of weakness, and he broke. Rashi says, Vayavo, he came home to do the act, Asot melachto, to do his work, melachto mamash. He came to do what he should not have done. And he's walking towards this woman, and he's telling himself, I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. And at that moment, as he's walking into the room, and she grabs him by the shirt, he sees his father's face. He sees divine intervention. Suddenly, he sees, God says, you don't want to do this. I'm going to help you. Why am I going to help you? Because you were fighting it all the time, and now you fell. I'll be there for you. I'm going to step in because I know you don't want this, and I know you're trying so hard, and God helps you. But if a person doesn't help himself, God doesn't help you. That's the rule. You do yourself. You get the block on the internet. You have to. If you don't do this, this is a minimal amount. It's expected. It costs you money. There's a story of Rav Kook once. He came to some hotel. She asked him, how much is it? $2. $3. $50. $100. He gave her the money. The friend comes in. How much is it? $100. $100? What do you mean? Yeah, it should be much less. He's talking to her for 5-10 minutes. Finally, she said, I'll give it to you for 90. No, 80, blah, blah, blah. They close on 75. He comes to Rav Kook and says, why did you just go and pay her? You should have, bargained. He said, I'm willing to pay $100 just to not have like this, talking to this woman and having a whole, discussion with her. It's not modest. It's not the way to do it. You pay money to look after your soul, your personality. These are things that you have to be aware of. It's a very powerful tools that we have, and you have to know that it's not an innocent bypasser. So that's the overview. Next week, we go into the practical steps of what do we do now that we know that this is the reality. So we understand this is the reality, but now what are the steps that I take? Tell me A, B, C. What do I do to change this? What do I do to take control of my life and not just be dragged by my habits, by my desires, by my negativity? That's what we'll learn next week with God's help.
Chazak
Shabbat Shalom.